Enjoying secrets of a sugar daddy? How about a little something extra? Here's today's dose of extra sugar with Marcus.
Hey, this is Marcus, and welcome to this segment of Extra Sugar. All right, I've got two really fun announcements. A third sugar daddy has stepped up to pay for someone's airfare to our party in November. So now, not only are we selecting 10 lucky winners, giving away 10 party packages for the Thanksgiving weekend, but 3 of you will also receive airfare, and that's within the continental United States and Canada. So you definitely want to get your entries in, and maybe we will even pay for your airfare to Phoenix, Arizona. All right, and the other announcement is, get this, I have too many unreleased episodes. So we are going to release not one, but 2 episodes next week. So I plan on releasing the regular one on Tuesday, and then I'm probably going to release the second one on Thursday or Friday. So look for that. That'll be a lot of fun. So you're going to get 2 full episodes of Secrets of a Sugar Daddy next week. All right, on to today's extra sugar. Now, this is a funny story, and this one has nothing to do with sugar dating in the beginning, but it sure reminded me of some horrifying sugar dates that I was on. So I took Sugar Baby to a comedy club last weekend, and lo and behold, as it happens to me so many times, I ran into somebody that I knew that I hadn't seen in probably 17, 18 years. I did work for this guy in 1997 when I first moved here, and he was in the mortgage business, and I dabbled in that a little bit, ended up getting out of it, but I did remember him very distinctly because he was a couple years younger than me. He was in his mid-20s, sharp dresser, was taking a leadership role, and I just knew this guy was bound for greatness. And sure enough, I ran into him about 7, 8 years later in an associate's office. He was actually a hard money lender for some of my real estate transactions, and we're just going to call him JP. He was also doing real estate and working with this gentleman, and we ran into each other at his office. Said some hellos, figured out that we did know each other. He had told me that he lived in this certain part of town up north Scottsdale. And and that was it. That's the last I saw of him. And so it's been a while. So we go to this comedy club, and about 3 rows ahead of us, actually 3 seats ahead of us at this table, I see this gentleman, and I told my Sugar Baby, I said, look, I know that guy. He just looks very familiar. I'm going to go ask him what his name is. So I got up, asked him if he was who I thought he was, and he acknowledged it, and he looked at me and he goes, yeah, I know you. And I reintroduced myself, and then there was a lady sitting across from him who was his wife, and she was a fairly new wife because unfortunately my buddy JP, his wife died about 7, 8 years ago of cancer, I think. But this one, she was bubbly blonde, definitely had some drinks in her, and made it known that she was his new wife. Well, there was a couple of seats that had opened up near them, and they were sitting across from each other, just like me and my Sugar Baby were sitting across from each other at this table. Both my girl got up and walked around and sat with me as there was a seat open, and then he got up from the table, walked around and sat in front of his wife. All right, so the comedian we went to, he was very funny. He's out of Texas. His name was John Polar Bear Gonzalez or Hernandez. I don't know, one of those. Anyway, so funny, very, very funny. And at one point in the show, he started talking about girth. And they had already made a connection with this couple that I knew because he said that he was from Montana originally or grew up in Montana. And she started pointing at her and her husband, the girl, the new wife, and so they exchanged, oh, we're in Montana, and they kind of knew where each other was from, and they exchanged a little bit in the beginning of the show. So they'd already kind of formed a bond. We were We weren't that close to stage, but we were close enough where the comedian could talk to us. And anyway, during his bit about girth, she starts putting her fingers over his head and pointing at him, to his complete horror and embarrassment. And so the comedian came over and says, "Oh, so I hear you have girth. And what was your name?" Well, he piped up, "Yeah, I'd rather not say." I mean, this guy is a successful businessman, pretty well known in the community. I don't think he wanted his name out there. Well, funny thing, his wife blurted out his first and last name. And the comedian was pretty taken aback that not only did she say the first name, but also the last name. So he kept calling him by his first and last name through the whole bit. My buddy JP, he played along, and at the end of the bit, the comedian says, "Well, look, I have a t-shirt for you, and what size do you wear?" And he blurted out, "Big and tall." So my buddy is only about 5'7". He's not a really tall guy, 5'6", 5'7". He looks good for that size, but he's not a big guy. Anyway, the comedian laughed, the whole audience laughed, and the comedian really loved that answer and threw him the t-shirt. The show goes on. He's embarrassed, but he got through the bit, my buddy. And then the comedian ended the show, and one of the things that I found out that he does at the end is he does like a strip tease. And this guy had a body similar to Chris Farley. I mean, he was a little overweight. He'd lost some weight, but it wasn't pretty. He takes his shirt off, starts dancing around. People go up to the stage and start handing him dollar bills and putting $5 bills in his belt and things like that. To my buddy JP's horror, his wife, who had many drinks, I remind you, got up, ran up on stage, and I don't know what she was doing, actually, because I couldn't see. Everybody was standing up, laughing. I look over at my buddy, and he is not laughing. He is absolutely disgusted. He's embarrassed. And he got up and walked out of the room. Oh my gosh, everybody was laughing. I tried to give him a high five as he passed me, and he barely bumped me, but he was visibly upset. So his wife gets off stage. Everybody's yelling and hooting and hollering. She goes, starts gathering his stuff. I can see her frantically looking at her phone, gathers her stuff really quick, and leaves the building. I did give her a high five because we were laughing our ass off. But my buddy was so embarrassed. And I get it. I have taken dates, especially since I've been sugar dating. I take a lot of dates to comedy shows. It's a great thing. Now, I wouldn't recommend it for a first date because you don't really get to talk much. It's a show, and you don't really get to know each other much. But it's a really fun thing to do 3 or 4 or 5 dates in. And the girls, they love it. So I've taken quite a few to comedy shows. And I started thinking there was a couple that I absolutely wanted to crawl under the table also, and I'll tell you about those right now. The first one was I'd met a girl when I was first on the site in 2016, and we dated for a year and a half, and I didn't know that her social filter was off, so we went to a smaller comedy club. It wasn't large. It wasn't like the Improv or anything. It was a smaller one in like a back of a restaurant or something, and I'd say there's probably maybe 50 to 60 people there. And we're sitting probably 2 or 3 tables from the front row. And this comedian's doing his thing, and he's talking, and he's interacting a little bit with the audience, but he's got his thing going. And she just stops and blurts out, "Hey, were you on Bar Rescue?" I was horrified. I could not believe she just blurted out to the comedian right in the middle of his act something that was completely unrelated. He stops his show and he goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm not up here doing my show or anything." And he's looking at her and everybody's looking at us, and he goes, "Well, and yes, that was me on Bar Rescue." And she yells out, "I knew it. I thought that was you. I've been sitting here this whole time trying to figure out if that was you or not. I knew it." And, oh my gosh. I was so embarrassed. I just wanted to flee the room, just like my buddy JP. So that was one incident. And then about a year ago, I also took a sugar baby to a comedy show. And we actually went double dating. I went with Amy, who was my original co-host, and she had a date. And we're sitting there, and again, the comedian's doing his show, and my sugar baby date is yelling out things to the stage. And people are just kind of turning around like, shut up. And so she did it once or twice, and I thought, okay, she's having a good time. But she kept doing it. I finally had to shush her. Like, it was embarrassing. It's so embarrassing for me. So when I shushed her, she stopped, and then she got this really sad look on her face. And then I looked over about 5-10 minutes later, and she actually had tears in her eyes. And she was visibly upset with me. We left the show. She was very quiet. We got in the car, and I said, look, I'm sorry, but you just can't be interrupting the comedian like that. She goes, I was just having a good time. I'm like, I know, but there's nobody else yelling out things to the stage, and it's just not appropriate. But I did apologize to her. We made up, and I think she understood finally. But yeah, that was a couple of really memorable dates of mine that I've had to comedy shows. So please don't yell out things to the stage if it's just not the time or place. And usually it's not the time or place. Be considerate of not only your date, the person who took you there, but be considerate of the comedian who's trying to do a show. He's got a flow. He's got a routine. He's setting everybody up for the ending. And when you yell out things to the stage, it just interrupts everything. And then sometimes they have to stop and they can't get back in their train of thought. And really the whole vibe of the joke is lost. So yeah, that's a couple of very memorable sugar baby dates that I've taken. Anyway, I'd love to hear your stories. I'm sure you've had some shocking sugar baby dates where you just wanted to crawl under a table. Oh, I've got more, and we'll probably bring those up in more extra sugars. But for now, I hope you enjoyed today's extra sugar, and don't forget to catch a full episode of Secrets of a Sugar Daddy every Tuesday. And like I said, next week, we are going to be dropping 2 shows. So look for that later in the week. And yeah, we'd love a follow on Instagram. And what else? Yeah, don't forget to register for our party. All the details are at secretsofasugardaddy.com. Okay, until next time. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed your extra sugar with Marcus. As always, visit our website, secretsofasugardaddy.com, to comment or tell us your story.